going to start a monthly Q&A. So what we are doing with this is I'm going to speak to someone different each month, people in the fitness industry, and get perspectives from them. So no better place to start than our resident bendy person, Imogen. So Imogen, tell us a bit about your background in the fitness industry. So what you've done, your experience, where you are now.
So I trained up to be a level 2 and a fitness instructor 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
I've done my PT course, my
Yeah.
level 3, and then more recently on from that, I've trained to be a Pilates instructor.
Cool.
And a fitness yoga instructor, now completing my advanced yoga teacher training. So,
Cool.
I don't personal train, but I've gone down more of the helping people through mobility, rehab, and then teaching yoga as a class.
Awesome.
From this environment, moving into progress, it's getting people from a gym environment who are pretty proficient at training for strength and for kind of muscle building goals,
Yeah.
and then getting them to work in more of a yoga, Pilates, holistic way.
Definitely. So those of you who are watching this who go to Progress know that Coreflex and Move Velocity is run by Imogen. And what I'm really interested in is the crossover, because I'm a big fan of mobility work and movement prep, and it's something I spend a lot of time on with clients. And just kind of like talking a bit more about the crossover from strength work, because Imogen does powerlifting as well with Dual Strength, who's Sam, who's one of the coaches here. But just, it's one of those things still that kind of frustrates me, that you see a lot of people, they go in, they just go straight onto their workout without doing any kind of like movement prep. They don't bridge the gap. They come in, then they wonder why they get injuries. They wonder why their movements feel rubbish. They wonder why they're not firing on all cylinders. And you as a powerlifting athlete, essentially, how important that can be.
100%. So it's important in every aspect of training. We have to remember as well, whether you're powerlifting, Olympic lifting, sport-specific training.
Absolutely.
Probably most important, and most of what I see here is like from a bodybuilding perspective. So anybody who's adding and gaining muscle, especially at the rate of speed that some people can do it with really effective training.
Yeah.
The impact that has on your joints. Joints take a lot longer to kind of build up that stamina and that momentum.
100%. Yeah, connective tissue and all that sort of stuff doesn't respond as quickly as muscle growth, right?
100%,
So
yeah.
it's one of those things, isn't it? And like, without generalizing, the bodybuilding approach tends to be very focused on a lot of anterior chain. As a rule of thumb, I am generalizing a bit, and as a result, so most people, right, you'll agree with me this, regardless of whether you're sedentary, you're active, everything's here. So we're in this position a lot of our day, right? So if we walk in, say for example, you've been at your desk all day and you've been in this position most of the day, you can be super wary of it. You can get up and move throughout the day, which is fantastic. Either way, you're going to be tight, you're going to have tension, right?
Yeah.
You'd want to do something about coming in, like when you walk through the doors, like ideal scenario, right? Everyone would be super supple, you walk through the door, you'd be firing on all cylinders from the word go, but that's not life.
Yeah, you'd be ready to go.
Yeah.
You've been active all day.
Exactly, and that's not the way that the world works, because the reason, from my perspective, and of course it's really cool because I've got the perspective of it from more of a weightlifting, all that sort of like more of a gym kind of side of things, with like, there will be a strong crossover, and there's a lot of mobility work I picked up from like Andy McKenzie, Eugene Tiao, all this sort of stuff, where it's kind of almost a bit yoga, Pilates sort of esque to an extent. So there's going to be that crossover, of course.
All the principles crossover,
Definitely.
which is super cool. And people like Andy McKenzie, they bring it to more of a generalised gym population, because like a lot of people are put off of yoga because they're like, there's going to be chanting, somebody's going to be using like a Himalayan singing bowl.
This is the problem. So
like
people
that.
see extremes, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if you just take the foundations of bringing movement through stretches and strength work together to create mobility and flexibility, that can be completely.
And this is another thing I find as well that's really important, because, and I know you'll echo this, it's not just mobilizing joints. You can mobilize until you're blue in the face, but you need to load them as well to get full benefits, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because mobilizing will only take you so far, and this is why I think the research into mobility work and warm-ups that are out there that have negative connotations gets blurred, because the trials may have just been done on people where they're purely mobilizing and then afterwards they're not loading. So as a result, I mean, the benefits with mobilization can last anywhere from like maybe an hour, 2 hours, something like that, right?
Yeah.
You feel pretty good afterwards. If it's something you want to, if you feel a bit beaten up after a session, then absolutely do it. Just for a bit of recovery, 100%. There's not going to be any negative effects, right?
No,
But
absolutely not.
if you're just mobilizing until you're blue in the face, but then you're not loading those joints and you're not loading the muscles, you're not going to get strong in that range, right?
No, and you're never going to get the change from it. So it's really cool that a lot of people come away from the idea of you just need to pound a load of static stretches,
Good.
like
Yeah.
lengthen your hamstring until it hurts
Yeah.
behind your knee. It's not about that anymore.
No.
And from a yoga perspective, there's loads of different types of yoga out there.
Definitely.
I teach Vinyasa Ashtanga, which is a fluid movement.
Cool.
It's the idea of moving through yoga poses with strength. So you find that flexibility, that range, things like a really deep, intense lunge, you find it and then you lift your kneecap and you find strength in the quad. So you are loading the joint and the muscle, but at that extra length.
Definitely. So,
and it's such a better way to find new flexibility, new mobility.
Definitely. And I think as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it can be very easy for yoga and Pilates to be seen as a recovery tool, but I would say personally it's not.
No, it should be something that, especially when we go back to like looking at the general gym population, a lot of people that I see have been training for years, sometimes 2 years, sometimes like 40 years, and now they're injured and now they've got bad mobility. Some people have had operations, frozen shoulders, knee injuries from it, and then they're like, oh, I think it's the time I should start doing yoga and Pilates. And like, yeah, it is, and it's really cool, and we can definitely reverse some of that. But from the outset, if people can train with the idea in mind that they need to mobilize before they train, they then need to load, they then need to do some kind of point of giving back to their body. If it's a yoga class once a week, if it's a little bit of stretching, a little bit of foam rollering at the end of your session, it's so much cooler that way. Like prevention.
Yeah, it's not firefighting. It's not a response. It's prevention. Right?
It's the prevention of it.
Definitely, and that's the problem. I see it a lot as well. People get to a position where they've already had an issue. But another thing, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but another thing as well that kind of is almost a little bit frustrating is when God forbid someone has a pinnacle moment where something goes pop or ping or breaks or whatever, right? And often it will be associated with the one thing they were doing at that time, which can sometimes be gym work. It can be some form of exercise, and that is the sole blame. Yeah. It's not that, right? People who have injuries that we come across in complaints, it doesn't happen in a day. It will have been building and building and building for a long period of time. The thing is though, like, I think the issue really with mobilization and yoga, and the reason people don't do it as structured and as kind of, consistently as we'd like to see, I almost think is because, well, it's almost a case of, well, I'm not injured now and I've been doing it for years, so what's the point?
Yeah. So
it's like, well, okay, well, you're not injured now, but if you keep on performing and exercising with poor technique because everything's so tight or whatever, then it's not going to happen straight away, but it's a time bomb. And it is going to go off at some point, and then you're in then you're firefighting, right?
Yeah, and then you have to firefight it, and then you get some people who, I've had people come to me and they do Pilates to help their back, or they do some yoga work to relieve tightness in their hips, tightness in their upper back. And they do it for 3 weeks, and they're like, oh my god, Imogen, I feel amazing. This is like life changing. I don't hurt when I get out of bed anymore. And then I never see them again. Because they're like, oh, it feels great, and I feel fine now.
I'm cured.
So I'll just go.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks later, it's back in that cycle.
Yeah.
So
this thing. I mean, I think it goes with exercise and fitness in general. That some people, seeing results is fantastic. I'm speaking myself here. I remember there was a real pinnacle moment where I was training at a previous gym years and years ago. I wasn't consistent in the slightest, and there was one moment it stuck in my head. That like I was getting changed in the change room afterwards, and I looked and I could see pack definition for the first time. I was like, this is so cool, I've never seen this before. I have muscles. And I didn't train again for like, I don't know, 2 months.
Yeah, because
you're so done.
I've got now.
I've got packs, job done, I've completed it. But like, that's the thing, it's like, it's looking at the longer game. It's trying to get people to buy into the fact that you're doing it for longevity. And it's great that people feel responses and see things, and it's like, cool, but now think another 3 or 4 sessions down the line, how much better you're going to feel even on top of that,
And people can, it comes into then all forms of sport, like with powerlifting. You can perform a perfect squat with perfect technique with a 20 kilo bar on your back.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a progression where you want to be at a place where you can load 100, 150 kilos onto your back with that same perfect technique, like it's not just going to come with the strength training. The strength training is awesome, but think about the impact that has on your spine, like the strength in the core that needs to be created, the mobility in your hips, like the tension that you build when, especially for like powerlifting, it's all about keeping tension in your body. So when I'm training and when I'm doing that and when I'm working with weights, everything's as tight as it possibly can be. I can't expect to do that for an hour, 2 hours a day and then just expect my body to just release it and let it all go.
No, because that's not how our bodies work.
You have to put equal amount of work in to then have that.
Definitely.
Just get back to that normal layer.
Yeah.
If you're then looking at somebody who's trying to correct an injury, prevent it, get more flexible, there's got to be an upward kind of struggle for that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, it's one of those things that it needs to go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And like just to echo something I already said, you know, you could do one without the other, but you're only going to go so far. It may take years, it may take weeks, whatever. Like depends on the severity of it, and depends on the individual. But if you're not prepared to make a little change, and it's but I've got to spend more time and blah 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 blah. And it's like you don't like. All you need to do is a bit of structure at the beginning of your session, more so for like movement prep, right?
Yeah.
Beginning of a session, I say to people 10 to 15 minutes, absolute tops. And just think about it as a bridge between your sedentary or what status you come through the door to you training.
Yeah.
You need to have that bridge there because you can't just step in after being sat behind a desk for 8 hours in a hunched position and expect to then nail your session.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be here. You're going to be tight just from whatever position you've been in throughout the day.
The muscle memory of it, you can't expect your shoulders to pin back in that perfect deadlift position if they've been here for the last 8 hours.
Sure. Definitely, exactly. So, and then, but the thing is, another way to think of it as well is like, instead of then jumping straight on a deadlift, getting a couple of warm-up sets in and then thinking X, Y, Z feels crap. Now let's mobilize. Just do that at the start. Yeah. Then you don't have to cross that bridge.
Cut out that wasted few moments. Like it's going to take you more time.
But then also injury risk and just risk of there being issues full stop with a movement way higher, right? Because if you're going in from nothing to exercise, because you aren't, because you're in a position where you've got tension evidently you need to address, and if you start slinging a bar around straight away, that's where things go pop.
Yeah, your body's not going to be pretty happy about it.
Definitely. I mean, like, what do you think needs to change within the fitness industry to get people to pay like more attention to doing this kind of stuff? And that's a hard question.
It is a hard question.
It's just come to my mind. But
I mean, one of the most common things that I hear about where people don't do like an hour of yoga a week, or even come to a half an hour class once a week just to give something back to their body is like, oh, I don't feel like I'm working. We have this great saying in yoga, and I always find it really poignant because it's that practice of non-violence against your own body.
That's cool.
And some people are like, so people are like, violence, like, that seems like a really strong word.
I'm not violent against my own body.
But actually, like, literally, like, they're like, no, that's too strong. But like, when I come into a session and say I'm in like a peak week and I'm powerlifting and I'm trying to deadlift more than I've ever deadlifted before, it's pretty violent on my body. Like, my arms feel like they're being pulled, your legs, you're like creating as much tension in your body as you can.
100%.
And in yoga, as well as it being like a wonderful place for your mindset to practice non-violence, to just let yourself be, let yourself do what feels right, chill out of a stretch when it doesn't feel good, drop into a meditation and like whenever you want to.
Yeah, definitely. It's looking after yourself, and our bodies are extremely resilient, and that's fantastic. But I've never heard that saying before. I think that's really cool.
It's cool to improve it, but if you're putting your body under that violence in the gym, you need to have that like.
It needs to balance. You need to recover as hard as you train. You do, like, because you're not going to get anywhere otherwise, are you? Because it's and it is, and that is a really cool saying, because when we train, thank you. I'll use that. When we train, we are putting our body under stress and we're putting it under load, and especially if you're being a moron about it and relying on muscle soreness and everything like that
to gauge whether you've had a good session or not.
You need to ask yourself as well. I think if you are doing that, why are you doing that? Why are you relying on that?
What is your body gaining?
What are you gaining from apart from digging yourself into a hole. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot that's improved with the fitness industry with regards to kind of when I started. I mean, when did I start? 2015 in here. Nobody really warmed up. It was maybe a bit of banded dislocations.
Yeah. Couple of sets with just the bar.
Yeah, off you go. And it's got way better, and more people are paying attention to it. But there's still a distinct lack of people that will just go straight. You know, that just have no inclination.
Walk in and hit a machine as the first thing they do in the gym.
Definitely. And like, excuse me, if they're in a position where they are moving and they're firing at 110% and they are working extremely well and they have no complaints, by all means, go ahead. If you feel super supple, you feel super mobile, do it. That's where I did it. Like, I would want everyone to be able to walk through the door. I want them to. I don't want people to have to spend 10 to 15 minutes like mobilizing at the start of a session. But the fact of the matter is it's necessary.
Yeah.
You know?
And I want people to do it, and I want people to feel how cool it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I love, like, there's nothing better than getting a powerlifting PB. You know, there's nothing better than, like, PBing your snatch or, like, hitting a really, like, clean and jerk.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, when I move through a yoga flow and maybe do half an hour where it's just me and my mat and I'm working just against my body weight, through stretches and through strength work, and I've managed to like get a bit of a sweat on, and then I hit a meditation and my body just kind of melts into the floor. That's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, like, I can only imagine. Like, I've done a few bits with you. I know how it is challenging. It's not, like I said, you know, echoing something I said earlier on, it's not recovery work.
It's
by
not
any stretch.
just for old ladies.
But, no, definitely not. I mean, I think, like, you know, it's awesome that you're broadening the horizons with that, and it's so cool that you're getting such a strong footfall both with velocity and with core flex every week, which is really, really cool. But I think the more people, just in general, if people just moved a little bit more day to day, we would be onto a huge winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Know? Because the way that I look at it, and I say this to all my clients, is our bodies become fused in the positions that they're in because we don't do anything else with them. Our bodies are capable of incredibly amazing movement and full movement. But the reason we end up feeling super beaten up and super just fused into one position is because that's where we spend our time.
Yeah.
And then what we do is, it can even be, a lot of the time, it's even innocuous things, like we're going back onto injuries. You know, it can be one movement your body's not done for a little while, nothing serious at all, but because you may have not done that little bit of it can be a rotation. You may be so linear with your movement and so arched, you go to rotate in a certain manner or movement really quickly, your body's like, what the shit are you doing?
Yeah.
You don't do that. Here's some pain. Something goes ping, and you're like, oh my god, why has that happened? But it's because you don't ever do that in day to day.
And that's all the pain it is. People forget. Some people think when they get injuries, they're like, yeah, I'm broken
forever.
I'm cursed, something's done this to me. When actually, it's your body's reaction to something that feels unfamiliar, for something that doesn't
and a lot of the
feel
time
right.
it can just be sensory feedback for your body being like, I don't trust this. You don't know here. You know? A really cool analogy that Eugene Tiao said when I went to see him last year in London was, when it comes to mobility and flexibility, it was like, with certain drills, with static stretching and stuff like this, those kind of things where you're forcing range. Analogy he used was like, imagine you were blindfolded, put in the back of a car, you wake up the next day or whatever, and you're in a completely different country, you have no clue where you are. What would you do? You get out there as quick as you could. Yeah. And that's essentially what you're doing to your muscles when you're forcing range, right?
Yeah.
And so such a cool analogy, and that's essentially what you're doing. If you gradually take them there, don't expect that range to happen overnight, but if you gradually take them there, put a bit of load for it, you know, you give them the direction, you know, say for example, the polar opposite of that is, of course, you ask someone to come with you, you go for a flight somewhere, you have a good time, you know everything's planned out.
You have a great time, you come back, but you know that you'd go there again. And it's exactly the same as what your body does.
So really cool analogy.
And we only ever in yoga, we bang on about stretching to 80%. You don't take a stretch to that place where it feels painful.
No.
You're going to use it again because you loved it so much. You don't want to bring that violence into it. Oh yeah,
don't bring in the violence.
Stretch to a non-violent place where it feels nice, where you can get some strength. You know, if like ever we're doing a hamstring stretch, the importance of drawing the kneecap up, squeezing the quad as hard as you can, so you're getting a load in that range, and then your body feels happy to come back there again.
That's cool. That's really cool. Imogen, this has gone, where are we at? 23 minutes.
Oh my God.
IGTV is going to have an
It's
absolute
going to have a meltdown.
meltdown about even trying
It's
to
going to
upload
take
this.
Aaron 8,000 attempts to upload this.
And it's got a 15
minute.
minute cap as well, so there's some really good content here, so maybe I'll like cherry pick. I'm going to finish with the 5 quick fire. So what I'm going to do with all of these Q&As
The
is
firecrackers.
the firecrackers. We'll call them Aaron's firecrackers because I'm ginger. 5 firecrackers from Aaron. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say 2 words. I'm going to say or and the first thing that comes into your head
is the one you have to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want quick responses, and I've got 5, and they're tailored to you. Ready?
I'm quite yogi, so I usually do everything at a very slow pace.
This is going to be the slowest quickfire round
Yes.
in the world.
Medium
Strong.
tempo.
Strong start. Ready?
Yeah.
Squat or deadlift?
Squat.
Cool. Bench or squat?
Squat.
Powerlifting or yoga?
Yoga.
Ooh!
Don't tell dual strength.
Coffee or memes?
Memes! It's gotta be memes.
Rick or Morty?
Morty. Always.
Every day
Or
you do.
Pickle Rick.
Fucking ace. Thank you so much.